With some of the dust settling from the NBA draft and the Pistons heading into the NBA free agency now, what direction are they going to go? I'm going to tell you guys, no matter what direction they decide to go in free agency, there is one must that they have to have addressed heading into this upcoming season. We'll talk about that in today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I'm your host, Kuka Hill. You can find me over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. And if you haven't already, head to our YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. We are on our road to our new goal as of 2 days ago of 5,000 subscribers. We crossed over 3,000 subscribers pretty fast over the weekend after the draft night. You guys were amazing. Now we're setting a new goal, 5,000 by October. Let's see if we can get there. Again, head over to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button. It's the best way to support the podcast. I really appreciate it. So with the dust settling somewhat from draft night, now I understand some of you guys are still extremely excited. I'm not going to lie. I'm still pretty happy and pretty excited over what happened in free agency, or not free agency, on draft night a few days ago. But the dust is starting to settle a little bit, and we are just a few days away from free agency. And with the Pistons still having a ton of cap space, I know Keith Smith of Spotrac projected the Pistons to have around $40 million in cap space still potentially. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but I'm going to trust Spotrac over there. It's probably somewhere around that ballpark. What direction are the Pistons going to do or going to take in free agency? And we've talked about the multiple different routes that they could possibly take here. They could take on one of try to go after one of the big time free agents in free agency, like DeAndre and Miles Bridges, try to pay them big money. They could go with lower key signings in free agency and kind of fill out the roster and fill out that salary cap with those kind of players. They could be players in the trade market, possibly being a third team that takes on a big salary to facilitate a trade that helps another team get the player they want while the Pistons absorb a big contract and get some picks with it. There's multiple different ways or multiple different routes that the Pistons could take with the amount of money that they have left in salary cap, which again is around the ballpark of $40 million. But no matter what route that they take, I think there's one thing that absolutely has to be addressed no matter which route they go. There has to be one thing that has to be addressed no matter what, and that's shooting. If this team goes into next season, and again, we're all excited over what happened on draft night. I'm excited still. I'm still happy over what they did on draft night. But if they head into the season, after seeing the kind of spacing that Cade Cunningham dealt with last year, and then double down on it with drafting a slashing guard in the draft at number 5 in Jaden Ivey, a guy who excels on getting to the basket, start him next to Cade Cunningham, and then not improve the spacing in that starting lineup, I said earlier on Twitter, I might claw my eyeballs out after game 3. I don't know if I'd survive. I seriously don't. And like I told you guys in the last episode, man, you guys are gonna be able to say these numbers like it's your own name. You guys are gonna remember it just like that. Someone's gonna come up to you guys and be like, "Hey, how did the Pistons perform this past season?" Well, they were 27th in this, they were 29th in that. I know this because I listen to Locked On Pistons podcast. But I'm gonna continue to say, I'm gonna say it again. The Pistons ranked 27th in the NBA in spot up shooting this past season. On all jump shots, they ranked 29th in the NBA. On catch and shoots, they ranked 28th in the NBA. On all jump shots off the dribble, they ranked 29th in the entire NBA. And we're not even talking about just even handoffs, 24th. They're coming off screens, 28th. Like, it was just, they lacked shooting throughout the entire roster. Shot making, just the ability to space the floor was non-existent on this basketball team. And that's something that cannot be the same case going into the next season. And in the second segment, we're going to talk about potential lineups that you could possibly see with some of these draft guys that the Pistons drafted with Jalen, Duren, and Jaden Ivey. We'll talk about that in the second segment, some creative things that we could see. But there's one thing I have to talk about right now. Now, I mean this with everything in me. If the Detroit Pistons plan, and I got into an argument with some people about this yesterday, but if the Detroit Pistons plan this offseason is to head into the regular season with Isaiah Stewart as the starting 4 and to start Jalen Duren at 5, if that's what their plan is, if that's what they end up doing, I'm going to claw my eyeballs out after the third game of the season. If you're one of the people out there that believe that Isaiah Stewart can become an outside shooter, that's fine. You can believe that. We'll see if he proves you right. But in no way in living hell should that be part of your plan for what the team should look like. You should not be just saying, oh, well, the starting lineup doesn't need to have any spacing. We don't need to address any spacing in our front court at the 4 position or anything, because Isaiah Stewart got this. He's going to turn into a knockdown shooter. We don't have to even address it. You know what that does? That gets you what you had last year when the Pistons didn't have a vertical lob threat for the first 5 months of the season. Their offense was putrid. They had no rim pressure at all. And all of a sudden, as soon as Marvin Bagley got to the team, all of a sudden the team looked like they had a competent offense. That's what happens there. That's what you set your team up to be, literally almost incapable of developing for 4 to 5 months of the season when you do something like that. Again, if you want to believe that Isaiah Stewart has the chance to be a shooter, you can believe that. But that should not be a part of the Pistons' planning. The Pistons need to address shooting in their front court badly. It should be the main thing they address. I don't care about defense. I don't care for this section. I know the Pistons, I should say, care a lot about defense. Over the past decade or so, they've sacrificed offense for defense. And I've told you guys this many of times. This team needs shooting. I don't care about defense this year. The team's not going to be that great. They may take a step forward, but they're still not going to be a great team. They're not going to be a very good team. I still think they're going to be a bottom 7 team in the East, or in bottom 7 team in the NBA at the very least. Could be worse than that. I don't care if it's because of the offense or the defense. I'd rather it be the defense's reason. The team needs shooting. You cannot go into this season with Jaden, Ivey, and Cade Cunningham in your starting lineup with no spacing. If you do that, you're setting them up to fail to a point of not just stealth tanking. You're actively stunting their development if you do that. So if you want to start Isaiah Stewart still, go ahead. Start him at 5. You want to start him still in the regular season? Go ahead. But at the 4 position, you better have someone who can space the damn floor. If you don't, Jaden Ivey better not be starting with Cade Cunningham. They better not be starting next to each other because you're setting them up to fail. This team needs to address shooting badly. They were historically awful last season offensively because they could not hit open shots. They could not hit shots coming off the dribble. They could not hit catch and shoot shots. They could not hit shots coming off screens. They could not hit shots coming off handoffs. They were horrible in every shot making metric. Trash, awful, hot garbage, dog water. They need to address it. So we're going to talk about potential lineups that we may see this season, some interesting lineups that I'd like to see this season, some lineups that Dwayne Casey may want to try out this season. But I'm telling you right now, if one of these lineups include Isaiah Stewart at 4 and Jalen Duren at 5 to start out the gate of the season with Jaden Ivey starting at 2, you're throwing. You're absolutely throwing. You need to at least see if Isaiah Stewart is going to be able to become an outside shooter. He needs to show you at least throughout the regular season. It should not be something that you start out the gate with. That lineup needs spacing no matter what. And we'll eventually talk about free agents probably in the next episode. We'll talk about it a little bit at the end of this episode. But there's some guys in free agency that you can get. Yes, they're not going to be as good as Jeremy Grant probably. They're not going to be as good as him. They're probably not going to be as versatile defensively. But they'll be able to shoot the damn ball, and that's what the Pistons need. They need to be able to shoot the ball. I don't care if the Pistons go from allowing 105 points a game to 107 points a game. I don't care. What I do care about is the Pistons not ranking. Let me pull it up again. 27th in spot opportunities, ranking 24th in handoffs, 28th off screens, 29th in all jump shots, 29th in all jump shots off the dribble, and 28th in catch and shoots. That's what I care about. Let's not rank at the very bottom of the league in every jump shot metric possible. How about that? Okay, and I'll take the minor slippage defensively. I had to get that out the way. Listen, what I want to see happen with this squad, with this new young core that they have put together, is what they did in Killian's rookie season. Killian didn't play that entire rookie season, basically that entire rookie season, but that roster was set up to lose, but it was set up to lose in a good way. Like that team could develop. That team could put out a functional offense. They could put out a functional team that made sense. The parts made sense. They just weren't good enough to actually win games. That was a good tank. That was a good losing season because your players could still develop. This past season, they were literally incapable of running an offense until Marvin Bagley got here because of how limited their pressure on the rim was, combined with their inability to shoot outside shots. If they do that kind of thing heading into the next season with this new young core with Jaden Ivey and try to set that up to fail, stunning that development, I'll be so disappointed. I'll be clawing my eyeballs out after game 3. Let me know what you guys think about that. If you guys agree with me, if you guys disagree, in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. When we come back, We'll talk about Hamdou Diallo, who had his option picked up. Actually, no. First, I'm getting ahead of myself. See, that's what we're going to talk about in the third segment. But we're going to talk about in the second segment, actually, is potential lineups that we may see this upcoming season. Some lineups that I'd like to see thrown out there this upcoming season, and some lineups that we think Dwayne Casey might be throwing out there at some point this season. Stay tuned for that. But first, I have to tell you guys about one of our sponsors, Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts that you need. Why endure often pointless and seemingly intimidating questioning, like is your Odyssey and LX, and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand that their warehouse happens to carry? You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home or in your pocket by using your phone. Save time and money when you're using Rock Auto. Why choose to spend 30%, 50%, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership? For example, a Honda Odyssey fuel pump is $353 from a chain store, but only $216 from Rock Auto. Rock Auto is a family business that's been doing it for over 20 years. Rock Auto prices are reliable for every single customer, and they have everything that you could possibly need, from brake parts to tail lamps, motor oil, and even a new carpet. Go explore the easy-to-use website today to find the solution to your auto part needs. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, locked on in your How Did You Hear About Us box, they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts that your car will ever need. rockauto.com. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button. It's the best way to support the podcast. We're on our way to 5,000 subscribers. Try to get that by October. I think we can do it. Again, it's the best way to support the podcast. Locked On Pistons YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. But let's go ahead and carry off that first conversation and talk about some potential lineups. And obviously, this could change with what they do in free agency, maybe some potential trades they'll do. But really, this is going to be talking about lineups that we may see with these guys that they got on the draft night in Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren. And let's start off with one that I personally want to see at some point. And they kind of hinted at it in their introductory press conference of the rookies. And that's a 3-guard lineup. And that features Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Killian Hayes, Saddiq Bey, and you pick your choosing, either Isaiah Stewart or Jalen Duren. And this is why I'd be excited about that lineup. You guys already know that I'm pretty high on Killian Hayes. I want to see if he's going to be able to be a part of this team's future moving forward. I believe he can be. I'm really high on his upside. I really like Killian. And one of the reasons why I like Killian Hayes is his ability to be a defender 1 through 3, and he can even switch onto guys at the 4 position in the post and kind of hold his own too. So he can switch among multiple positions defensively. And what that allows you to do is get really creative with lineups. And I wanted the Pistons to be able to draft a guard or draft somebody next to Cade Cunningham that would be capable of letting the Pistons run out the kind of 3-guard lineups. And I think that 3-guard lineup right there of Ivey, Cunningham, and Hayes could be pretty interesting. I think it would be a lot of fun to watch. I think it would depend heavily on the ability of Killian Hayes to hit open jump shots. If Killian Hayes is shooting like he did at the beginning of last season before he had his thumb injury, when he's shooting around 37% on 3-pointers, then that lineup will excel. If he's going to shoot like he did after the thumb injury the rest of the season, and he's shooting around 28% from 3, it will not work. Now, we know that Killian Hayes is putting in a ton of work this offseason. We've seen multiple videos of him getting in work. I saw some of him down in Orlando working with a trainer. I saw one of him working with a trainer overseas in France still. I saw him working out in the practice facility with the Pistons. We've got multiple videos of him working out. I'm sure everyone's working out, but we know he's going to be working on his jump shot. We know that he's going to be working on his offensive game. And if that part catches up, I think that lineup right there gives you the kind of flexibility to have versatility defensively among your guard positions, guys who are big, strong, not just tiny guards that can really be bullied around. All 3 of those guys aren't going to get bullied around: Ivey, Cade, and Killian Hayes. So that allows you to play switchability and versatility on the defensive side. And offensively, you have 3 guys on the floor who should be able to create something with the ball in their hands and create for each other and create for others and kind of run the offense. Obviously, Cade will be able to do it. Killian will be able to run the offense. And hopefully, Jaden Ivey, that's a part of his game that you want to see develop throughout the season. Him being able to run the offense, him being able to make plays for others, him being able to get to the rim and score for himself as the lead ball handler of the team. That's something that if you have those three guys out there, you're really just you have so many threats on the floor. And we're not even talking about Sadiq Bey, who has shown improvement over last season. So if you have those guys all on the floor at the same time, as long as Killian Hayes has actually improved his outside shooting, that would be, I think, a really good lineup and could be one of the Pistons' better lineups. But it really does depend on if Killian Hayes develops his outside shooting. If he does, that's going to be a lineup I love seeing. And I think Dwayne Casey hinted at them closing with that lineup if Killian Hayes did improve over the past season, over this past offseason, or I guess maybe not past offseason, this current offseason going on. He said that in the introductory press conference with the rookies. So I'd be interested in it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to see it. And I think as long as Killian got better, I think it could be one of the better lineups. Another lineup that I think has been talked about a lot, and Dwayne Casey, we kind of talked about in the first segment, that Dwayne Casey's definitely going to try, and he already mentioned it, and it's becoming an argument, a hot topic in the Pistons community, is the front court. And that's starting Isaiah Stewart, or not starting, but just simply playing Isaiah Stewart and Jalen Duren next to each other. And listen, you guys know that I'm not a big believer. Actually, I'm not a believer at all at Isaiah Stewart at the 4. People just like to pencil him at the 4, in my opinion, because he's an undersized center, so that means let's put him at the 4. At the 4, you're taking away what he's really great at, what his main value is, and that is a 5 who can switch out on guards in the pick and roll. If he's not doing that on defense, you're kind of taking away what he does best and what brings like the most value out of him. And again, that's his ability to play center. And when they put him in pick and rolls, he can switch out and hold his own. That's probably his biggest strength. Putting him at 4, you're basically putting him in situations where he's just not going to be. They're probably not going to attack him at the 4. They're going to be attacking the center, whoever it is, whether it's Jalen Duren or whoever, Marvin Bagley or something. That's what they're going to be attacking. So you're kind of taking him away from what he does great. That's 1. 2, I get that he's great at switching out on guys, like on stretches, but that doesn't, like, for example, and this is the best way I can explain it right here. People used to say LeBron could guard centers. Yeah, LeBron could guard centers, a play or two here, a few plays in consecutively. But if you ask LeBron James to do that, if you're asking LeBron James to be someone who guards centers as like his permanent position or something that he does all the time, he won't be able to do it. You saw it this past season. Now he's older now, but that would have happened even when he was younger. That's something that you can do in spurts. That brings you value. That's part of your toolkit, but it's not something you should be doing all the time, because then it's going to be exposed a little bit. And that's what's I feel like it's going to happen with Isaiah Stewart. He's good at switching out on the perimeter. That does not mean he should be living on the perimeter as a defender. I don't agree with that. That's 2. And 3, I don't believe he'll be able to chase guys around screens at the 4, some wings around. I don't think he's quick enough to do that. I just don't. I'm not a believer in it. But anyways, I kind of got off topic there. Anyways, that's going to be a lineup that you definitely see at some point, it sounds like. And what it will hinge on is, like I said, all those concerns I have about it working defensively, but offensively, it will hinge on Isaiah Stewart being able to hit outside shots. And we've talked about Isaiah Stewart being able to hit outside shots so many times in this podcast. Again, people like to turn me into Isaiah Stewart hater. I don't consider myself an Isaiah Stewart hater. I feel like I'm a realistic person. So like over the last 8 games this past season, the last 8 games of the season, Isaiah Stewart shot 61% from the 3-point arc. Okay, before then, he wasn't even taking a 3 a game. So, like, I'm not going to overreact to this 8-game sample size, though I will say, again, he has shown spurts that he can be outside shooter. So, if you want to be a believer in that duo of Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart will only have a chance of working if Isaiah Stewart is able to catch and shoot threes and shoot them at a respectable clip. And I don't think people understand this either. He will have to shoot at a clip that not only is good enough for him to make them every now and then to where you're like, okay, he's going to make a few. He's going to have to shoot it at a good enough clip to where defensive actually care. Like, some guys will hit a shot every now and then from beyond the arc, and defense will react the exact same way. They won't contest that jumper. They'll still sag off the guy. They won't concede driving lanes. So if he's not shooting that ball at a good enough clip to make the defenses change how they're guarding them, that's still going to destroy the spacing. Unless Isaiah Stewart is shooting at a good enough clip to where he's making them pay consistently, that's going to make the defensive change their strategy against them, and then that will make it capable of working. But I just feel like the clip that he'll actually have to hit that the outside shot at, it's just unrealistic for that to really work. Though we're going to see it. I think we're definitely going to see it at some point in the season. It's going to be interesting. I really question the spacing, and it'll be in. Everyone believes that Isaiah Stewart's a 4. I think we're going to get a chance to see that this season because of the drafting of Duren. So it's going to be interesting to see if Isaiah Stewart can actually hold his own at the 4 position. Does he actually improve his outside shot to a point to where it actually matters and changes the way defenses guard him and the team? It's going to be interesting. But those are 2 lineups that I think would be interesting to see this upcoming season. Obviously, those lineups will change. There'll be more interesting lineups that we'll probably talk about as free agency gets underway, as some trades happen, depending on who they pick up, obviously. But those right now, those are the 2 lineups that I'm most looking forward to seeing. The first one is one that I think I would really like seeing. Second one I'm looking forward to seeing because I'm really skeptical on it actually working. I'm wanting to see if I'm going to be right in my skepticism, or if Isaiah Stewart proves me wrong and makes it functionable of a lineup. If he does, his value goes way through the roof. So I'm interested in seeing both those lineups, seeing how it goes. But that's all I've got for you guys in this segment. Let me know what you guys think down below or on Twitter at Kooky Hill. What are some lineups that you guys would like to see this upcoming season? What are some lineups that you guys are interested in seeing right after the draft? You guys like the ones that I brought up? Again, let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kooky Hill. When we come back, now we'll talk about what I was mentioning earlier. I almost spoiled it. Actually, I basically did spoil it. Hamidou Diallo sounds like he's going to be having his option picked up, while another Piston, sadly, is going to be having his decline. I saw a lot of you guys disappointed. He's a fan favorite. We'll talk about who that is and why the Pistons decided to do it this way in the upcoming segment. But first, I have to tell you guys about one of our sponsors, BetOnline.net. BetOnline.net is your number 1 source for all your sports betting needs and sports info. Find all of the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's NHL playoffs and Major League Baseball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. And BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events, including MMA, boxing, golf. They have tons of others. Tennis. They got college basketball, NBA, college football, NFL. Anything that you can think of, they have it over there. And if you head over to the basketball section, you'll see that they're already right after the finals, right after the NBA draft. You can already start going over there and looking at favorites for next year. Who's going to be the worst team in the NBA next year? Who's going to win the championship next year? You can already see those odds over at betonline.net. So again, head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about their trends and action today. BetOnline, where the game starts. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. And if you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button. It's the best way to support the podcast. I would really appreciate it. We're on our way to 5,000 subscribers, hopefully by October. I'd really like to hit that goal. So again, I need your guys' help. Head over to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. All right. So it's been reported by James Edwards of The Athletic that the Detroit Pistons will be picking up Hamidou Diallo's team option, $5.2 million team option for next season. And at the same time, they will be declining fan favorite Frank Jackson's team option of $3.15 million. Now, this kind of shocked me. I'm not going to lie. This kind of caught me off guard. I actually thought if they were going to choose, if one of these guys were going to stay, I actually thought it would be the other way around. And it's because they, like we just talked about in the first segment, this team desperately needs shooting to a point where it's criminal how bad this team needs shooting. And between Frank Jackson and Hamidou Diallo, Frank Jackson provides some kind of spacing. Now, I guess that's kind of like, is it really true though? Because Frank Jackson shot 30% from deep this past season. And before this, his first season with Detroit, that was in only 40 games where he shot 40% from deep. Before that, he played 2 seasons in the NBA. He shot 32% from deep and 31% from deep. So it's looking like that first year in Detroit where he shot 40% from deep is the outlier here. I'll admit that Frank Jackson's archetype is the archetype I'd rather have on the team, the archetype that would probably fit the team better. But he's just so inconsistent with his outside shot. He's just so inconsistent overall offensively. And it's looking more like, as the sample size increases, that his first season in Detroit, where he shot 45% from the field and 40% from deep, was an outlier, and it doesn't look like he'll be able to replicate that. So I get why they, and I know he's a fan favorite. I know fans are going to be sad to hear that. I know fans are going to be sad to see him go. He was a really good dude, a great teammate. I had fun watching him. You guys remember his first season in Detroit. I was saying he was probably their best pure scorer on the team. That's how good he was playing that first season. So I really liked Frank and his time here with the Pistons. I don't think this means they're going to sign him back on a cheaper deal because he was on already a team-friendly deal, a $3.1 million contract. That's not like expensive at all. Like I don't. If they were wanting to just bring him back, they would have just accepted this team option. So I think this would signal the end of Frank Jackson's time in Detroit. I know some of you guys won't like to hear that, but listen, man, he just didn't hit enough shots. And again, the idea of Frank Jackson turned out to be better than actually what Frank Jackson was. So wish Frank nothing but the best in the future, man. But he needed to hit shots, man. He needed to hit shots this past season. He had the opportunity. He just didn't do it. Now that comes back to Hamidou Diallo now, though, who they did pick up his option for. And again, I don't think this means he's for sure coming back to the Pistons, though. I think he could be traded in a possible trade around free agency. He could be possibly traded at some point after free agency. This doesn't mean he's for sure going to be in the Pistons next year, but if he is on the Pistons, some of the reasons I think they may have picked him over Frank Jackson, and mind you, again, this was kind of shocking me because he was the more expensive option. He was $2 million more. Now it's only $2 million, but either way, he was the more expensive option to pick up. But I think what probably lended the Pistons more in Hamidou Diallo's favor was his versatility and what positions he can play. He can play 2, 3, or 4, I feel like, probably. He's undersized at the 4, but he's really aggressive on the glass. He'll play hard on the defensive side and stretches. When it comes to, again, getting loose balls and attacking the glass, he's extremely aggressive. I mean, he holds his own. He's really strong, so he can play 2, 3, or 4. So having that kind of flexibility and versatility in what positions you can play, it probably lended its favor to Hamidou Diallo. Hamidou Diallo being a Troy Weaver guy from OKC probably lended its favor that way. And also, not just him being a Weaver guy from OKC, his body type, his archetype is kind of what it sounds like is Weaver's guy. He's extremely athletic dude, brings a ton of athleticism in transition. A guy who we've described him over on the podcast so many times as like a ball of fire that's just trying to get out at all times, just a blur, to someone who's explosive in literally every sense of basketball. And whether that's good or bad, like in the bad senses too, and the good senses, he's just extremely explosive. And it seems like the Pistons are trying to move towards that direction, where they're trying to become more of an athletic, explosive team. They got Bagley, and we'll see if he comes back, but Bagley, Diallo now, Duren, they got Jaden Ivey. Like it sounds like, or it looks like that they're really trying to get more athletic and more explosive in the lineup. So, and I think that's what leaned them in Hamidou Diallo's favor more than Frank Jackson. Do I think this will change anything they do in free agency? No. Because, again, I don't know if this for sure means Hamidou Diallo will be on the Pistons. It just means that he'll be able to be traded now with him officially being on the roster, being his contract officially being guaranteed. He can now be traded to another team. I won't be shocked at all if he gets traded. But if he is on the team next year, I think he'll be fighting for minutes in the backup unit. I think it's going to be tough. Right now, I see it tough as a possibility for him to gain minutes. Because with Killian backing up, you got Isaiah Livers, who's probably going to need it's definitely going to need to play because of his spacing, his IQ defensively, him talking, his connectivity. You're definitely going to play Isaiah Livers. You're not going to play Hamidou Diallo as the backup 4. You're probably going to bring back Bagley. If you don't bring back Bagley, you're probably going to get someone else. He's not going to be the permanent 4. And then obviously at 5. So then you're talking about him getting minutes at that 2 spot. And if you're having Killian Hayes running the backup unit, you want someone who can space the floor at the 2 guard. And again, not even just Killian Hayes running the second unit. If that guy's going to play any mid for the starting lineup at any point on the floor, the Pistons have lacked shooting. They can't shoot the ball. So it feels like that's going to be something they've really tried to address this offseason. So if they get a guy who can spread the floor at the 2 guard position in free agency or in a trade, I just feel like he's already going to have an advantage over Diallo because he's going to be bringing something the team desperately needs and something Diallo's just not going to be able to bring for the Pistons. So it's hard for me right now to see an avenue for him playing minutes, even with them picking up this option, which makes me think that he could be traded. But yeah, I think his versatility in the positions he can play, him being the Troy Weaver type of player, body type, archetype, explosive athlete, fitting that kind of thing, probably leaned its favor over to Diallo rather than Frank Jackson. But more importantly, I feel like probably was the fact that Frank Jackson just disappointed and wasn't able to hit shots. If Frank Jackson was able to hit shots this past season, I think it's an easy decision. They pick Frank Jackson over Hamidou Diallo. But I think they're starting to believe that his first season in Detroit was Frank Jackson, that is, his first season in Detroit was more of a fluke, more of an outlier than it was the normal. So sucks for Frank. I hope he continues to get a chance in the NBA. Hopefully he plays well and remains consistent. And we'll see what the Pistons do with Hamidou Diallo, whether that is bringing him into the roster on training camp on the roster or trading him during free agency. We'll see what happens. But that's all I've got for you guys today. Let me know what you guys think about today's episode in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. And if you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button. It's the best way to support the podcast. We are just a few days away from free agency. Who are the Pistons going to go after? Who will they sign? Who are some guys that you want them to sign? Again, let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter. But until the next episode, I'll see you guys later. Stay safe out there. Go Pistons. I'll see you guys later. Peace out, everybody.